This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the best all-in-one platform for all of your website building needs. Hey guys, it's Celestia, and I'm sure you're all very familiar with the tortured artist trope. It's hard not to be. The idea that all truly great, beautiful, meaningful art is born from pain, and that the best artists are the ones who suffer the most and turn their pain into art, is one that's been prolifically spread for centuries, to the point that it's widely accepted as fact. Vincent van Gogh, Sylvia Plath, Kurt Cobain, despite the fact that they spent their lives dealing with mental anguish that was far, far from beautiful or quirky or glamorous, they're used as examples that the pain that they suffered was necessary. It was tragic, but it fueled their art, and it enabled them to make it as incredible and incomparably significant as it was. Mental illness was simply the price they paid for artistic greatness, glorifying it in the process as not just a tool for artists to utilize, but a necessity for success. And there are very, very few things I hate quite as much as this stupid trope. I'll be the first to acknowledge that mental illness and pain absolutely do inspire some truly beautiful art, because art is one of the only ways some of us are able to express and process it. I'm a mentally ill artist who's made plenty of work doing exactly that, and while it's not work that I share often, it's easily some of the most meaningful that I make. But just because pain can inspire exceptional art doesn't mean that pain should be romanticized or viewed as a necessary feature of an artist, and the fact that that's exactly what we as a society have come to do without question is, to me, unacceptable, because it's had much wider reaching and severe consequences than a lot of people realize. The tortured artist stereotype is a deceptively harmful one, and I firmly believe that it's time to finally let it die. And in today's video, I'm gonna tell you why. But before I do, let me take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace and I are, as far as the comments on every video I post are concerned, basically married, a joke that's only reinforced further by the number of other comments speculating about our scandalous divorce every time a video doesn't start with me gushing about them. And the jokes aren't exactly unreasonable, given how often I talk about them, but I stand by that because there's a good reason I do. In my opinion, Squarespace is the best website building and hosting platform out there. I found that out firsthand long before we started working together on the channel when I built my personal Duchess Celestia portfolio site there, something they made so easy and fun that they're always my first recommendation to any artist looking to build their own. I'm even working on building a new one there that I'll be showing you guys here soon. But as much as I could go on about their portfolio options for days, that's far from the only thing that you can build there. It doesn't matter what kind of site you need to make. They have the tools and templates that you need to do it, and that includes online stores. You can easily turn any site that you make into a fully functional online store, because they give you every tool you could possibly need to do so. The ability to manage payments and inventory, handle shipping and fulfillment, and even boost your SEO to help you get more eyes on your site and maximize the number of customers shopping there. And it's not just physical goods that you can sell. It's just as easy to sell services, consultations, event management, editing, even art commissions. Their tools make selling anything easy, with a streamlined workflow, built-in appointment scheduling, email marketing tools, and so much more. And your customers have just as many options as you do, too. They offer all of the most popular payment methods like Klarna, ACH Direct Debit, Apple Pay, Afterpay, and ClearPay, and even allow you the option to send individualized branded invoices to specific clients, so you can start accepting orders from all around the world with just a few clicks. So whether you're an artist in need of a portfolio, an entrepreneur building an online store, a creator setting up an interactive blog, or a small business owner making a landing page, Squarespace is the place to do it. And you can find out yourself by going to squarespace.com to get your own free trial today. And once you've built the perfect site that you're ready to launch, you can get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain by going to squarespace.com/DuchessCelestia, linked in the description. Thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video, and please go check them out. All that out of the way, let's start unpacking the tortured artist trope and all of the inaccuracies and harmful ideas that comprise it, starting with where it comes from. Because let's just be honest right off the bat, it's not baseless. There's a disproportionately high number of mentally ill people drawn to the arts compared to almost any other field, and some of the most famously beautiful art has been created by some of the most disturbed minds. Like I said before, for many people struggling with mental illness, art can be an incredibly therapeutic way to cope with it. It allows us an outlet to express the feelings, fears, and experiences that we would otherwise struggle deeply to process. And not only is that valuable for the artist, it's appealing to the viewer. There's always been a widely accepted belief that art has to have emotional meaning and significance to be valuable. And while I don't necessarily fully agree with that, I will acknowledge that this, too, isn't baseless. Art can, in my opinion, be just as beautiful without obvious or deep meaning as it can be with it. But it's also true that art that expresses meaning that a viewer viscerally relates to just hits harder. Some people who are coping with mental illness or trauma turn to art to express it, but others turn to appreciating that art to feel less alone in it, and find some solidarity and validation in seeing their experiences shared and expressed by people who understand them enough to depict them with their work in a way that resonates with others in similar positions. We don't struggle to find things beautiful, so art that is beautiful and nothing more, while still beautiful, feels less significant to us emotionally emotionally speaking. We do struggle to understand and bear the things that hurt us the most. So art that speaks to us in that way, and helps us do so in the process, is naturally going to be more important to us in comparison. And even those of us who aren't dealing with issues of our own are still drawn to expressions of pain in art, be that in the form of illustration, writing, media, anything. We don't have to relate to it for it to make us feel something. I've never lost a significant other, but listening to Terrible Things by Mayday Parade still makes me want to cry. Not because I understand the pain it's expressing, but because the expression of it is so effective that I can't help but imagine it so clearly that it hurts. And that establishes a connection to a piece of art that is missing when that pain is. Some studies have even suggested that that connection is more valuable than the art itself. In one, two groups of people were shown the same painting. One was informed of its artist's mental health struggles beforehand, and one wasn't. The one that was expressed much more appreciation for it, implying that that appreciation was informed less by any visual quality of the art, and much more by the idea that it was the product of suffering. All of this is to say that while I don't believe art needs to have emotional meaning or significance to have value, the value that it has when it does is uniquely different and often more memorable and hard-hitting. So it makes sense that we've come to accept this whole idea that artists need to suffer to make truly great art, since suffering expressed through art is that sincerely impactful to us. Which is part of what's so frustrating about this, because that means to a degree, that idea can't be dismissed as completely wrong, even if it is a harmful one. Torment is fuel for creative genius when it motivates an artist to create something based on it that others can resonate with and appreciate, and they likely wouldn't be able to without having experienced it. But what people fail to understand is that it isn't an artist's suffering that drives their creativity, it's their fight to survive it. We have to survive it to be able to express it, and when we're in the throes of it, we're usually too broken down to be able to. At my lowest points, yes, the pain that I felt ended up inspiring a lot of art later on in my life, but I wasn't able to make it until I got better. I turned the wounds into art, but only after they had healed into scars. If they had never been able to, that art never would have existed. And the glorification of mental illness and romanticization of pain for artists doesn't promote that kind of healing. It tells us we should stay at rock bottom, maintain our suffering, never try to get better, embrace brokenness, and reject healing, because if we don't, we lose our muse. We lose what gives our art meaning. We lose the macabre tragedy that makes us uniquely creative. We're told by society over and over that as artists, our pain is our greatest asset, and without it, we're nothing. So who would want to get help? Who would want to go to therapy, find support, learn how to cope, make their lives better, when it would mean sacrificing our ability to make the art that, for many of us, is the only thing making life worth living at all? The way we put the trope of the tortured artist on a pedestal is actively pushing creatives in every field not just to embrace misery, but seek it out as if it's desirable, as if it's beautiful. You can turn it into something beautiful with art. I can't emphasize enough how valuable creative expression is when it comes to healing from mental illness and trauma. There's nothing more healing, in my experience, than processing your pain through art and recovering from it as you do. But the goal should be to heal from it, to use art as a tool for recovery, not avoid recovery so as to preserve your ability to make it. Life is cyclical, and there will always be more pain to come even after you've healed from that which came before it. There will always be new sources of inspiration and new struggles to express through art, but you won't be able to express them if you force yourself not to heal from any of them to the point that you're so broken down that you don't have it in you to make art out of any of them anymore. Depression and anxiety are notorious for making even the most basic of tasks feel impossible, and if you can barely get yourself out of bed, how do you expect yourself to turn the reason for that into a masterpiece? Pain is a natural and unavoidable part of life, and we should encourage the expression of it through art. But deliberate self-destruction is not a necessary rite of passage to be a real artist. It's not something we should aim for. Vincent van Gogh, I think it's actually Van Gogh, but despite the fact that almost my entire family is Dutch, I've learned almost nothing about Dutch pronunciation, and everything I've looked up says something different about what the correct one is, so I don't know. Moving on. Anyway, he's usually the first person that people think of when the topic of the tortured artist comes up, and that's always made me incredibly frustrated, because he's the perfect example of why the trope is so inherently harmful, misguided, and wrong. When people talk about his mental health struggles, they do so with this strange fascination and borderline fetishization. Oh, it's so tragic that he had to deal with so much pain, but he was able to turn it into such beautiful art. So in that way, isn't it kind of beautiful that he had to feel it, since he wouldn't have been the artist he was without it? They act like his suffering drove him to create masterpieces, like it was some sad but romantic movie-like experience that was necessary for him to reach his full artistic potential. They talk about how he ate yellow paint to try to get the happiness it represented inside of him, because that's so sad but poetic at the same time. They don't talk about the fact that by almost all accounts, that's a lie. It's not romantic or beautiful to acknowledge that what he really did was try to poison himself by consuming turpentine in hopes that he could finally find happiness through his own death. They don't talk about the fact that contrary to the belief that his pain fueled his art, he wrote in one of his final letters, "If I could have worked with without this accursed disease, what things I might have done. They talk at length about how his greatest works were made in the darkest throes of mental anguish, but refuse to acknowledge that Starry Night and similarly iconic paintings weren't. He painted them while he was institutionalized and seeking treatment, because receiving treatment and trying to heal from his pain allowed him the strength to turn the view from that asylum into something so incomparably gorgeous that the world will never forget it. He was living proof that while suffering can inspire the most beautiful art, too much of it can make it impossible for the artist to make it at all. His pain held him back from being able to reach his full potential as an artist and derive any satisfaction from what he created, something he himself acknowledged and lamented. And that's the case for so many artists in similar positions. And yet we as a society tell them to cherish and embrace the pain that's killing them, because it's what gives their work value. It's what gives them value. I've always been a huge fan of David Lynch, and since his passing earlier this year, I've been working on a video commemorating and honoring his contributions to art, because there are just so many. He changed my life, my view on art, and inspired me to become the artist that I am today. He continues to inspire me to become a better one, and I know that's the case for hundreds of thousands of other people too who have found similar meaning in his work. In my research for that video, I've listened to all of his audiobooks and interviews, and amongst all of the incredible insights that he shared was one that resonated particularly deeply with me, because it's about this exact issue. He's a rare example of an artist who passionately and outspokenly rejected the idea of the tortured artist, and spoke at length about why. In one interview, he's quoted as saying, "Depression is a poison on creativity," and in another as saying, "The more you suffer, the less you want to create. If you're truly depressed," they say, "you can't even get out of bed, let alone create." He openly acknowledged that pain can absolutely inspire some incomparably beautiful and meaningful art, but spoke very candidly about the fact that too much of it renders an artist incapable of expressing that inspiration. Pain can only be turned into art if you allow yourself to heal from it, and creatives being pressured not to in order to maintain their status as a romanticized, tragically inspired, tortured artist stops that art from ever being made more often than it empowers its creation. Pain provides material, but only peace can allow you to use it to its full potential. That was a big part of the reason that he was so passionate about promoting transcendental meditation, a form of meditation that he firmly believed promoted that healing and allowed artists that peace that they needed to reach their full potential, not just as artists, but as people, not just for creativity, but for happiness. I don't want to comment one way or another on transcendental meditation itself, since that's not relevant to the video, and I know it was a bit of a contentious topic amongst his community. But the point is that he was so adamant about fighting the tortured artist trope that he actively and relentlessly advocated for what he believed was an effective method at fighting the pain that he viewed as a creative blockage, rather than embracing it as creative fuel. And hearing so much about how he felt about it was a breath of fresh air after so many years spent hearing the opposite. And that's not really just his opinion either. Research on human creativity is complicated, abstract, and difficult, if not impossible, to quantify. But even so, that which has been done so far at least compellingly suggests that it's inhibited when an artist is experiencing anguish or distress. It's an artist's ability to distance themselves from and limit the influence of that allows them to thrive. One report called How Creativity Works in the Brain found that it was at its peak when an artist was able to enter a flow state in which they detached themselves from, quote, conscious evaluation of their output, focusing solely on their process. That flow state is vastly more difficult to achieve when mental illness is inhibiting your ability to concentrate. How are you supposed to lose yourself in the creative process when you're drowning in self-hatred, imposter syndrome, obsessive self-defeating thoughts, and debilitating symptoms of the disorders that are inspiring your work? Of course, it's easier for us to be creative when we're free from all of that, even if it's what made us want to be creative in the first place. Encouraging us not to free ourselves from it so that we stay inspired is actively stopping us not just from being happy, but from being anywhere near happy enough to make the work that we're staying unhappy to make. It's like starving yourself in return for food that you aren't able to eat. Ultimately, the trope of the tortured artist is one that has a basis in reality. There are reasons it's been so widely popularized and romanticized for so long, and some of them are actually legitimate. But we have taken it way too far. We've gone from saying that pain can inspire beautiful art to preaching that it's a necessity in order to make it at all. We've gone from seeing art as a way to heal from pain to seeing pain as a valuable resource to make art, one that should be sought out. And in the process, we've taught artists that we should fear recovery and embrace suffering just to have value. We should reject any hope of happiness because what good would our work be if we had it? And that kills me. It's certainly not a narrative that I want to promote. David Lynch talking honestly about it hit me hard because no one does, especially not artists who themselves have expressed pain through their work and understand the value of that. So few people acknowledge the need for balance, the need for peace alongside pain, the fact that artists can turn it into beauty without needing to force themselves to wallow in it indefinitely. I doubt that him talking about it did much in the grand scheme of things to dissuade the acceptance of the ideal of the tortured artist, but it did help help me. It made me feel understood and hopeful. It changed how I view my own suffering and forced me to reject the idea that I should covet it. It made me want to heal from it as much as I want to express it. And that, I guess, is why I'm making this video. If it can do the same for even one of you, that's enough for me, even if that's all it ever does. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Special thank you as always to channel members Joseph Solomon, TC Pratt, Haruki Saluzzo, Peachy, King Good James, Art of Amethyst Fable, Extinction Animation, Andy the Hedgehog, Kai the Memer, Jazz, Abyss Reborn, Just Sayori, Stardust, and Angry Shroomish, as well as patrons Batman, Kyle Lowe, Blue Swanson, Jamisha Walker, Alengshi, Ken Yen, Crazy Asar, Gentong, Racing Xavier, Blah Mage, TC Pratt, Finn, Celine Merriman, Eldritchia, The Stray Dog, Ulura, Greg Noble, Decagon, Jenny Chan, Catbus, Mac, Lucy Yamajiki, Selena Bibi, Pride, Totally Shogun, Insomniac Sleep Schedule, Wing Tang Wong, Marie Greer, Potato, Jazz, Voidwalker, Latte Tabby, Christian Cook, Adam Surovietz, Doriyaki, Varius, and Anon, and I'll see you in the next one.